evening, cult members, and welcome to Pop Culture Cult. I'm Sean.
I'm Janice.
And this is going to be our review, reaction, discussion of Chapter 5 of the Book of Boba Fett called The Return of the Mandalorian.
Woo, woo, woo.
Okay, we all knew this was coming. After
Right.
last week
Well, yeah,
with the Q.
definitely after last week, yeah.
Um,
And then they just went right there.
they-
There was no pussyfooting around.
No, they went right into it. There's a lot to unpack in this episode.
Yes.
To start with, they spent a whole episode tying up loose ends from season 2 of The Mandalorian.
Yes.
Several, not all of them, but several.
Yes. Yes.
And season 1, if you want to go back that far. But
Okay.
the idea that Din has let his kid go to college and he's reverting back to who he was before he had the responsibility of a child, and going into using the Darksaber to make money as a bounty hunter to get a new Razor Crest. That is, you're using a Jedi weapon who are selfless in a very selfish way.
Right. Which the weapon wasn't down for that.
Nope.
And I think that we at least have realized it, even though Jin probably has not yet. He went away. He went on this little quest, voyage, whatever,
Right.
with Grogu, and he's changed. He learned a lot of things. He, cared for Grogu. He, he met
Bo-Katan.
Bo-Katan and Ahsoka, and learned about kind of more about the big world than his little wackadoo religious group was allowing him to.
Yeah.
So now, the fact that he tries to go back, and at first they're like, sweet, now there's 3 of us instead of just 2 of us, and everybody's like, yay. And then he has to fight
Pris Vizsla. It's Pre Vizsla who actually lost the Maul. It's Priz Vizsla, who is his descendant.
yeah.
But they're both descendants of the original Mandalorian Jedi.
that
Vizsla.
that made the
Darksaber. Right.
And so he feels he had a claim on it, right? And they fight, and the armorer says, their little verse or whatever that they're supposed to say, have you ever removed your helmet?
Yeah.
And Priz, whatever, however you say his name, was like, nope, I don't do that. And Jin couldn't.
Din,
couldn't. And so he has to kind of go off on his own, right? So that wraps up a bunch of stuff.
There's a bunch
all at once.
There's a bunch of stuff there. We were just watching Star Wars Explained, little 10-minute review. And in that video, he said his kid goes to college. He has a midlife crisis. He loses his job. So what's he do? He goes and builds a hot rod. This is the most Star Wars episode I think we've had the entire way. Most Lucasfilm thing we had the entire way. But the idea of him reverting back to his old ways because he doesn't know what to do now. His mission was Grogu, and then he
tries to go home.
But
he's changed.
He even questions some of the things that the armorer is saying to him. Not openly questioned, but at least I've learned some stuff on my journeys in the galaxy and on my vision quest, if you want to call it that or whatever. But he also wants their acceptance in their home because they're the people who raised him.
Right.
His covert was the ones who found him, raised him, put him in armor, and made him a foundling, made him the Mandalorian that he is.
Yep.
When we first get introduced to him, and then with what happens to him with Grogu has made him to the Mandalorian, the man that he is now.
Right. Right.
And so that I like that there was, of course, he tries to go home again. He has no compass. He has no ship.
Yeah.
He doesn't have his child with him. He got thrusted this ancient weapon of power
That he obviously doesn't know how to wield because he slices a piece of his leg off.
Right. And he's using it for selfish reasons.
Yeah.
Reasons, and that's yeah, I in that scene where he's fighting the armor and he's fighting against the sword, I took my glasses off and openly said, I'm going to cry. Because one of my favorite episodes of Rebels is when Sabine and Kanan are training with the Darksaber. It's called Tales of the Darksaber. It's one of my favorite episodes of Rebels. And everything that happens in that episode of Rebels is mentioned in this fight.
Or in the fight, yeah.
We just didn't get to the final bit, which is in that episode, Kanan, he pretty much just pushes and pushes and pushes and pushes on Sabine until Sabine releases herself from her guilt that she's the one who built she built the weapon that the Empire uses to destroy Mandalore and to kill Mandalorians inside their armor. And she's the one who did it because she felt like she wasn't getting anything out of Mandalore, and so she went to the Empire, and she was in the Academy, and she's a amazing engineer, and so she had all this guilt, and the sword was fighting her,
Right.
and she was fighting against herself and the sword and everything. And once she released all of that, she was able to control the weapon.
Right.
That all was happening, except we never got to that point where Din released that.
Right, because he's on a different journey.
Yes,
He doesn't have
yes.
guilt necessarily. He just, like you said, he doesn't have a compass.
Yeah.
So he's trying to go back and be the Mandalorian, the bounty hunter, the guy, and the sword is like, yeah, that's not what I'm all about.
Right.
And then, but he keeps trying to keep it up. Right. I mean, she took the spear and said, well, you shouldn't.
I'm so pissed they got rid of that spear. I'm so pissed they got rid of that spear. I like what they did with it, but.
And it's problematic, right? The existence of that spear is problematic.
Yes.
For future plots, right? And probably past plots, because it is the only thing that goes through Vespar, right? So like he's kind of makes him undefeatable,
right?
Between that and the
Darksaber. Yeah. Although Pedro Pascal with the spear is always going to be a win for me. Like that's just like. Now, I don't think this particular episode, it's actually Pedro in the suit. I think it
generally isn't.
It generally isn't, but because he's gonna be Joel in Last of Us, so it makes it difficult for them to have him leave that and then go film in this and whatever.
They can have him doing
that's why having Pedro be the Mandalorian, but also having these two other guys, it allows them to do stuff like this, where you can insert this character into other shows and other points in the story, which I really appreciate. My nose is just gonna make just got an itch. There we go. Okay. So with him fighting Priest Vizsla and winning, but not winning with the Darksaber, he's put on another quest by the Armorer to redeem his mojo,
his Mandalorianness
by swimming in the
pool under the
mines on Mandalore.
But Mandalore has been wiped out, right?
I loved that scene because we have all been sitting around asking what happened during the purge, right? We when we saw it in season 1, it was a story that hadn't been told yet after what happened in Rebels. And then when the Darksaber shows up with Moff Gideon, it raised a lot more questions because Sabine gave it to Bo-Katan, and which goes against all their traditions, but everything happens. But them showing the Empire just terminating like the entire planet.
Yeah. Yep.
And that just is heartbreaking but amazing to watch.
Yeah.
But it feels like they're, as much as I've been talking about what's going on in Tatooine and why are we fighting over this rock of sand that has nothing to it, it feels like they're setting up something else for Mandalore, the planet.
Yeah.
With all of that.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's always gonna be an understory for the Mandalorian, because that's where he's from, and you know, the other Mandalorians that he's meeting up with are all seemingly very different from each other. They've all been disconnected from the base because the base has been destroyed, and so they're all making their own way out in the world and kind of doing their own interpretation of the Mandalorian creed. So that's always going to be, you know, kind of going on with him, I think, as he encounters other Mandalorians and decides who he is. I'm kind of wondering if he stays on with Boba Fett, at least for a little while, into season 3.
Yes, I have had that thought, especially after the introduction of the music and the kind of tease last week.
Right.
And then the end of this episode where Finnick tries to hire Den, and Den's like, no, I'll do it for free. He's a buddy. I owe him one.
Yeah.
But the idea that Den and Boba and Finnick being together makes a lot of sense. But the problem is with the addition of the Darksaber and the political intrigue that goes with all of that.
Yeah.
It really muddies the water about, are you going to, like you said, is he going to stay with Boba and just be like one of that tribe?
Yeah.
In that tribe that he's building everything there?
Yeah.
That makes complete sense. But he's the ruler of Mandalorians right now because he's got the Darksaber. So
but again, Mandalorians are spread out from hell and gone.
I actually have a discussion theory that I want to have at the end about what I think the Darksaber, there's a conversation to be had there. Anyways, he leaves the Circle Ring space station of Doom with his covert to go to Mandalore, to get his mojo back, whatever. But he gets a call from the mechanic on Tatooine, the mechanic chick that was in the episode, not the last episode, but the episode before, when Boba walked through town and she was in the background and with the droids and everything, and him having to go through check-in to drop up, like,
ride public transportation.
You're not allowed to take weapons on the bus, sir. You have to check your weapons. But they're part of my religion. I don't care. Like, it's such, like, a lot of people, when Din said that in the first season, like, a lot of gun-toting people, like, just started saying that guns are part of my religion. And we live in a very gun-happy state, so I'm not afraid of guns. I don't have a problem with guns or whatever. But him having to have an argument with a droid, you can't take the gun on a public transportation, sir. You need to check your weapons here. And he just, like and this and this and this and the thing and the
It was very
rope and the
cliche, right?
yeah, it
They're
was so
taking
funny.
everything out of your pockets, and you got, brass knuckles and a switchblade
And the
and some
knife in his
nunchucks,
boot, and it
and
was like,
yeah.
and then he pulls the dark sable handle out, and he like looks at it, and he puts it in the case, and he closes it, and he points at the droid. And says,
Droid.
I know everything that's in there.
Yeah.
It's a
Because
great-
I don't. What's the droid gonna
What's
do
the droid?
with the
The
dark
droid doesn't
saber?
care. The stuck on public transport when in the jetpack sitting next to him was just hilarious. And the little kid in front of him, the Gamorrean, not the Gamorrean, oh my god, it's right there. Greedo's race.
He's Greedo, yeah.
Greedo's race. It's right there. Like turning around and bugging him, but it was a green child
Yeah.
talking
yeah.
to trying to talk to him,
Yeah.
and then mom kind of pulls him around. But when they melted the spear down, they made a point of saying like Din's like make it for a foundling,
Yeah.
and there was a back and forth or whatever, and he's like a specific foundling Grogu. And so she made what looks like chainmail. It was rings and stuff, and she tied it up in a little handkerchief and
With
made
little
a little
ears, with little ears.
with little ears and
With little
stuff.
ears.
And when it happened, I'm like, oh, it's a little Grogu head. Oh, cry, tear. And she's giggling. And then he pulls it out on the bus, and we're both crying because he's like, oh, I miss my kid.
It looks just like you.
It just looks like they go to he goes to the hangar where the mechanic chick is, and there's something attacking all of the droids, something or whatever.
Yeah.
In that you've got the three Larry, Moe, and Curly droids from the prequels, but also that were in her shop or whatever.
Yep.
You have R5 Red from the original trilogy, and then you have BD. BD1 specifically is from Fallen Order, the Star Wars game. They announced this week that they're working on Respawn is working on Fallen Order 2, which they kind of opened it up for that. And there's rumors that there's a trailer coming at Celebration. If Celebration actually happens, it looks like
It's
going to
happening.
It looks like it's happening.
Just
but
don't even. It's happening.
we got safe and health and safety protocols recently, and I was reading them, so they're ready. They're ready. But BD showing up, I openly like this is the time there. I wish we were filming us watching the shows because I like look at Speedy and when we were watching Alex and Molly from Star Wars Explained their thing, they had the same exact photo. BD is amazing. When they're working on the ship, him doing the light not in place is straight out Tony Stark and Dummy
Yep.
like banter. It's so good on so many levels.
He even said, "You're a tragedy."
You're a tragedy. But that's BD's personality too, is to kind of like be like
Yeah.
dicking with you as you're trying to do stuff. The ship that they are actually building is a Royal Starfighter from Naboo.
Yep. From the prequels.
Like I talked about it in this past. I'm sure I know in my brain somewhere is the actual designation of the ship.
N something, because I was like, oh, it was
yeah, it's
N
like
for Naboo.
NR1 something. I don't remember. I don't compete in trivia, so I don't have to fill my brain with curds and whey. But that ship showing up now, when they first pulled the cover off, I thought it was a pod racer, specifically Anakin's pod racer.
Yeah.
But then they pulled the rest of it off, and they spent 10 minutes building a hot rod.
Yep.
I am
Got a blower.
I am
Fuzzy
here.
dice.
I am here all day for that. Some of my favorite parts of Star Wars is the weird and absurd. I like space wizards with laser swords, and I like space battles with ships and lasers and good guys and bad guys, and I love all that stuff. But some of my favorite stuff is just last episode there was 3 campfire scenes of them just discussing what the world is and how they're trying to make it better. And in this episode, we build a hot rod.
Yeah.
And how Lucas can you be building a hot rod? And a lot of people, I kind of tried to stay away from stuff, but a lot of people were really happy with this episode.
Yeah.
And and we got halfway through that montage, building montage. I was like, I wonder how people are going to take this.
Yeah.
But it's an example of another step towards Din allowing himself to leave his previous life and move into what his new life is. He can't put
Right.
carbonite freeze bounties in
In-
the little
yeah,
shell behind
yeah.
him.
And he can't live in it. It's a puddle jumper,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
yeah.
it's fast, which again kind of leads me to, does he make Tatooine home base for a while
Yeah.
with Boba and just jump out for whatever it is he needs to do? Or I mean, if he's got a place to live and he's got a ship, he doesn't necessarily need to go out and make money. Finnick did try to give him money, and he was like, "No, it's a buddy. I'll keep it." And Boba said, "I got plenty of credits." So,
Right.
and I mean, food. They're throwing food at him.
Right,
So,
That's too many slices.
so, it would allow him to maybe go out and try to find other Mandalorians with the Darksaber.
Yes.
Along with doing stuff
I'm-
with Boba. I don't know.
You're kind of laying out some stuff that I haven't really thought about. If he decides to stay on Tatooine with the Darksaber and they're able to squash the Pikes as they sit right now and kind of control what they need to control, it gives him a home base to
Yeah.
go search for others and maybe learn about other Mandalorians that have other ways of viewing the universe, the galaxy. And he can also rally them, because I really feel like the end of season 3, they've said in the past that there's a 4-season arc for the Mandalorian.
Okay.
So it feels like maybe season 3 could be the building of the Mandalorian army to go into the Great Mandalore War
Yeah.
to bring it up. Now, Mandalorians don't exist as we know within the confines of the sequel trilogy. Now, we could be leading to a point where it explains that they had their own shit to deal with and they stayed out of the main galactic war with the First Order,
Right.
which would make a ton of sense. You build that story up to kind of say, we've been through a lot of poo.
Yeah.
We don't want to get into another
There's
war.
just not enough of them,
Oh, right,
potentially.
right.
They could even, Tatooine is a couple of Moses, Moses, and a lot of desert.
Yeah.
So maybe they have
When
a
they
place
flew through
to
Beggar's
stay.
Canyon, there was a bunch of little huts on the side of the wall.
Yeah.
There could be anybody in those. So
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking. I mean, they don't have a place. They don't have a home.
And
or he goes and finds someplace nearby, obviously, because he can't go super far.
in Rebels, they dealt with former clones that had been discarded by the Empire and how they kind of went to ground, and they started families, and they a couple of them stayed together with Rex and stuff with so a lot of them like did the point like went away, like a lot of these coverts of Mandalorians did, so you could kind of have that conversation or whatever.
Yeah, but then you need a big bad, right? You need a universal big bad.
It's the armor. I think she's going to try to stake claim with Pris Vizsla that it's supposed to be them,
Okay.
and they're going to build the ancient ways of Mandalore.
Right.
And Bo-Katan is going to take kind of what Duchess Satine was doing, which was demilitarizing what Mandalore was.
Right.
And that was a lot of the conversation that they had during that whole part of Clone Wars and Rebels, is the demilitarization of Mandalore, and how some people were very much against it and how some people were very for it. And so if you continue that conversation now, but all of the major players that would have been around other than Bo-Katan are gone.
Yeah.
So it just makes it makes it very interesting to have that conversation if we go forward. got the hot rod out for a test drive. We fly around. He whizzes by the bus, waves at the kid.
It gets pulled over.
It gets pulled over, which is exactly what happens when you get a brand new hot rod and you go test drive it and you're doing circles in the freaking in the parking lot. Carson Tevitt is the one of the X-wing pilot cops. I don't know who the other one was. They kept making a point of showing him and then saving Carson.
Yeah, I think he was just some rookie.
Yes.
Carson just
in
ended
a
up
blue
with.
X-wing, which I find interesting because we haven't really seen blue X-wings on a regular basis for a while within the story.
Yeah.
And so, but him making a point of saying, "I recognize your voice," and there was a Razor Crest that got blown up by remnants of the X Empire. Was that you? And he's like, "I don't know what you're talking about." Hit the NOS.
Engage NOS.
Them when they're doing the hot rod part, them explaining like, you do this and I'm gonna put this in here and this is gonna reinforce this, and I leaned over, I'm like, they just put NOS in it. It's got a blower sticking out of the bonnet, and they put NOS in it.
NOS.
But Carson saying, do you want to go back and do paperwork all day for something that we really don't have any answers for or whatever? But the bigger thing there is the X-wing sheriff's department is kind of floating around Tatooine. Now, right now, we only have 2 officers trying to patrol all of Tatooine.
Yeah.
But if the New Republic has an inkling that the Pikes are trying to do stuff on Tatooine,
Yeah.
that's a very interesting kind of conversation that could be going. Like they laid like some breadcrumbs.
And where are they stationed? Because
Right.
X-wings can't just.
X-wings can go into the atmosphere, and
they can, but they can't deep space long missions.
They can do short
right.
light speed jumps,
Yeah.
but
They're like jet fighters. They
but yes,
go out, but then they got to come back and refuel.
It's very interesting, like what they did on Navarro with Carson, and Tatooine's kind of even farther out than Navarro.
Yeah.
But
so is he patrolling that whole area?
It very much feels like the Old West. The New Republic is trying to build a new style of government, and while they're doing that, the Wild Wild West is going out in the Outer Rim and the Outer Reaches, and that's why the Pikes and the Hutts and everybody is fighting over the stuff. And so but I love that, like, here's a little bit, there could be something there. Fennec trying to hire Din and whatever, him saying, no, I'll do it for my buddy, but I have to go see, I have to do a small little side quest first.
Yeah.
And he's got the chainmail rings, so he's going to go see Grogu. Now, I don't know if that happens in the next episode. I would like to see what's going on with Grogu and Luke and how his training is going.
Yeah.
And I like to see that. I don't know if I need it with 2 episodes of the Book of Boba Fett left.
Right. However, if Boba Fett's story continues on as the Mandalorian story, then, if this is all coming to some sort of head, and they hired Din, then he's got to go and come back. So
right.
either he's going to go and come back. I mean, we would like to see the
baby.
That was a lot of build up to then not show him to you. Just he goes and then comes back, and then there's fighting.
Yeah. I'm gonna say it. I'm thinking it as we're talking. Grogu is going to be part of whatever the war is that's coming.
Maybe.
Either with the Pikes or with what happens with Mandalore.
Maybe he's been training enough. Like, he gets there and Luke's like, yeah, this kid is off the charts, and he can
Yoda's
come do some.
Yoda and Yaddle's Yaddle is the female Yoda. She's in like episode 1, and then she's gone. She's in the comics every once in a while. But the species that they are, we don't know what their species is, but they are super strong with the Force.
Yeah.
And Grogu has been kind of blocking himself away from after Order 66, and
Yeah.
so he's very much like in a position of I need to relearn how to control this and not make myself sleepy every time I go to do the handy thing. But having
Do the
him,
thing with the hands.
yeah, but just like this episode specifically, having a just, I mean, they've been saying that this is Mandalorian 2.5,
Yeah.
and telling the story of Boba, his backstory, how he became the Boba that we saw in The Mandalorian,
Right.
and now we have to.
Now we're all caught up.
We're all caught up. We got all a bunch of the strings tied together, and now we're gonna lay some groundwork and then kind of move forward.
Yep.
This was directed by Bryce Dallas Howard.
Yep.
I will now get on this bandwagon. Give her a movie. Give her a trilogy now. Give her High Republic. Have Kevin Scott and the Project Luminous group have them co-write it together. Give them 3 movies and have Bryce Dallas Howard direct it.
Yes.
I am on this bandwagon, and you are not going to tell me anything different.
No,
She
she's done amazing.
understands Star Wars. Of course she does. She was having dinner with Lucas and
She grew
Kurosawa
up with George
and
Lucas
right.
as a small child.
But she gets pacing and the comedy and the emotion and just some of the framing and just
Yep.
like give her the High Republic. Just say, here, go.
So, so she directed it, right?
Yes.
It's George Lucas. I mean, it's Star Wars. They built a hot rod.
Yeah.
Her father was in a George Lucas movie
Build hot rods.
about hot rods.
It's the circle of life. We've talked a little bit about what the next couple of episodes going to be. I have a little bit of a theory. I've been kind of talking about how Kira is the one who's in charge of the Pikes. Last week at the end of the episode in the music, New Rockstars pointed it out, and it happened again in this episode. At the end of the music for the end of the credits, it matches the Crimson Dawn theme from
Solo. Yep.
Now, spoilers for everything else we've been talking about, but Maul was alive during Solo and then killed in Rebels. But that makes her left in charge, and they're dealing
Right.
with her a lot in the War of the Bounty Hunters, and then the Crimson Reign comic is out. I think there are 2 issues in. It feels like if she learned directly from Maul, it feels like she's going to try to stake claim to the Darksaber. And my theory is, and I kind of mentioned this yesterday, it feels like if she has control of Crimson Dawn, which we feel like she does, and that she's pulling the strings for the Pikes, she has 2 big criminal organizations. If she thinks that she could have claim to the Darksaber and she could rally the Mandalorians behind that, she now becomes the major power in the galaxy.
Yep.
While the New Republic is still trying to figure things out.
Right.
The First Order is still off doing their thing. And so I may be projecting my own personal wants and needs to have Kira in Star Wars right now. But it really feels like that's where it could go.
Yeah, it could. Yep. Yep.
This
And
log,
that could be the big bad
yeah.
that they all have to kind of deal with in the next season of The Mandalorian as well.
The math works, the storytelling works, the criminal underworld stuff that they're kind of dealing with in Mandalorian, A Book of Boba Fett, it all makes sense. It's not a big leap to say that she is the big bad pulling the strings from the background. I did kind of make a joke that the warrior and the Tusken tribe was her training Boba to maybe have him be the one that's kind of by her side. I don't think that's true, but it was a crazy wackadoo idea.
It was Mephisto.
It was Mephisto the whole time. But that idea, the idea that Kira is the one and she's trying to build this empire of criminal organizations and then try to get the Mandalorians on her side because she feels like she possibly could have claim to the Darksaber makes sense. It makes sense to what I'm
yeah.
doing. Yeah.
Well, and it takes advantage of a void, right? Because like you said, you have the New Republic and the
First Order.
And the First Order.
First Order is not really in the galaxy at this point in time.
Right.
They're out in the unknown reaches.
Right.
Probably with Thrawn and Ezra and
right. So they're all out there doing their thing.
Exegol doing their thing.
So there's
growing Snokes and bathtubs.
Upside down bathtubs. There's a void, right? That it's just a bunch of, it's kind of a free for all. Like you said, it's the Wild West, and so you could have one person, one organization with more power come in and just, instead of wiping them all out, just bring them all in and make your organization even bigger and better. And then by the time those other groups get into this galaxy, universe, whatever, they're going to be a power to have to go against.
It's definitely there. It's definitely something that is not. I feel like that's where they're going.
Yeah.
And I could be completely wrong, but I really feel like everything that I know about what they tried to do before with Solo and roll it into this. And it makes you're giving prequel fans what prequel stuff, they're giving game fans the game stuff, they're giving sequel fans animation, like they're tying everything together in this big bow of fun and introducing a whole new element of Star Wars that we haven't dealt with. And there's been one Jedi. Yeah. And one light sword, 2 light swords.
Yeah.
And so you're giving everybody what you want and a mod biker gang.
Right. Right.
That is our thoughts on Chapter 5 of the Book of Boba Fett called The Return of the Mandalorian. Let us know what you thought of this episode and our reaction and review in the comments down below. Please be nice as a requirement around here. And like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, follow us on all the social media stuff, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Links are in the description down below. And until next time, cult members, good afternoon, good evening, and good night now.